Alright, everything looks good. Yep, let's get this video started. So how's it going, everybody? It is me, Music Man Johnny, PM7FV, and I would like to say welcome back to my channel. As y'all can tell right now, I definitely have got a haircut and got my beard trimmed, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different for this channel, like I do for a lot of videos. And today I'm going to finally do a full-length review of the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie. Now on the day of me recording this, the movie has been out now for like 3.5 months at this point, if my math is correct. So I believe it's now been long enough to where everybody has been able to see the movie, get their own impressions of it, for me to do a full-length review. But before we get started, there's a couple things I need to address. Number one is, if there's anybody watching this for some reason, if you still have not been able to watch the Fnaf 2 movie for yourself, I definitely would recommend clicking off this video right now, because this will contain spoilers for you. But as for the rest of you who have seen it and want to hear my opinions, please do stick around, because I bet you're going to enjoy it. Now, the second thing I need to address here is this. Looky here what I got. That's right. The Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie is now available on DVD and Blu-ray. If for some reason you were not able to see the movie for yourself in the theaters, and you prefer to watch it on DVD instead of just doing some kind of streaming service, please do head to your local store today and purchase the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie on Blu-ray or DVD today. Alright, with those announcements now out of the way, let's go ahead and get this review started. So, if you happen to notice me looking up away from the camera here, is I have a little note card here to help me remember what I want to talk about for this review, just in case I forget. So what I'm going to be talking about is, in this order, is the opening and closing scenes, my top 5 favorite scenes from the movie, some scenes I was not expecting, the scenes which I thought were the scariest, some scenes that I thought could have been improved. I'll be talking about a few Easter eggs, some criticism that some people have put out about the movie, just mention a few surprise guest cameos here and there, and just talk about a couple theories I have, and then I'll close. So with that being said, let's start off by talking about the opening and closing scenes. So after I watched the teaser trailer like way back in March of last year, I actually predicted that William Afton was going to be back in this movie. And sure enough, the opening scene did a good job of bringing him back by doing a countdown to not only commence like a show at the Fnaf 2 location, but also with him just like announcing basically just the start of the whole movie. I thought that was really cool how Blumhouse did that. So yeah, to Blumhouse, that was so cool of you to bring William Afton back for this movie. Matthew Lillard, I thought, did a good job with this opening scene myself. But now moving along in the scene, we notice that it takes place in 1982, which is a slight deviation from the game's lore. Because in the lore of the games, Fnaf 2 actually takes place in 1987. So I could imagine some critics would be like hating on the movie for not accurately depicting the game lore. But hey, it's similar to the first movie. They put in a few changes here and there. And I personally don't mind it myself. So, it's Blumhouse. I don't hate y'all for changing the lore. I actually don't mind a few changes here and there. Just as long as it's a good story and you do include as many elements from the game as you can, that's perfectly alright with me. So, to basically keep it short as to what happens in the opening scene, we basically see just a look at the whole Fnaf 2 establishment of what it would look like in its prime and basically during the day. We see lots of children having fun. We see it has a little merry-go-round. We see it has a little riverboat ride. But it shows something else. and it sort of focuses on a little girl, Charlotte, who in the games is mainly referred to as Charlie for short. And we also see Vanessa basically in her childlike state, and it looks like she and Charlotte are both really close, really good friends. Now, one thing we notice in the opening scene is that Charlotte seems to be a bit of an introvert. She doesn't really socialize with any of the other kids. She mainly is just obsessed with the marionette, or the puppet, whichever one you prefer to call it. But Vanessa does her best to basically persuade Charlotte to basically associate with the other children. So after some talk, Charlotte manages to go to a table to basically socialize with some children, but she doesn't really talk much and instead just looks around the establishment. And she looks over at this one door and sees something rather suspicious. What she sees is William Afton, dressed in his Spring Bonnie yellow rabbit suit, and he's luring a little boy into the back rooms. And Charlotte immediately gets a feeling like something's not right, so she decides to tell one of the adults about it, basically to get some help. But each adult she talks to basically just brushes her off as just being annoying, just sort of like disrupting fun or whatever. And after the third time she gets brushed off, she decides to basically go help the boy herself. But right before she goes back there, Vanessa warns Charlotte not to do so, but Charlotte ignores Vanessa's warning and just goes back in there anyway. Upon going back into the back rooms, Charlotte sees a long hallway and sees a little area where they wash the dishes. That's where both William Afton and the little boy are. Charlotte manages to get the boy, so basically just scoop him up in her arms and just carry him to safety. But as she's leaving, William Afton hears her, picks up a knife and chases after her. And as it seems Charlotte is getting close to the door, it appears that William Afton attacks her, and yet somehow she ends up on the stage, which I'll cover more about this part later on in the video. But this is essentially where the movie seems to start taking its turn into kind of like a scary movie in a way. After Charlotte goes out onto the front stage with the little boy, she's looking around at all the adults, and basically no one's just paying attention. Everyone's just so oblivious to what's going on. And it seems like she's just so full of just anger and sadness and just internal pain all put together. And she lets out this scream, and it's only then that the adults truly grasp the danger of what's going on. So Charlotte manages to let go of the boy runs to his mother, and it's Charlotte basically falls down while on the stage, and it turns out William Afton stabbed her to death. So as she's lying there on the stage, the hatch beneath her opens up, and that's when the puppet emerges from the hatch and is basically holding Charlotte in its arms. And then it takes like a little glance around the crowd, and that's when we cut to basically the opening credits. Which I gotta give credit to Blumhouse. That transition is very well done. I really like that. So that's basically the opening scene. Now let's move on to the closing scene. So after the spirits of the OG animatronics basically pass on from the real world into basically like the spirit world, Mike leaves with his friend Jeremiah and Abby, but tells Vanessa not to come along with him because he's basically just at a point where he doesn't believe Vanessa is going to be completely honest with him and is just going to keeping secrets from him. Basically, he just doesn't trust her, and they leave. So Vanessa is left standing there in the doorway watching them leave. That's when the music box shuts off, and that's when something really dark happens. So as Vanessa is basically watching the three of them leave, and is just really heartbroken that she's been left alone, the music box stops, and that's when we see the puppet, or the marionette, again, whichever one you all prefer, it doesn't really matter to me, just appears behind her and takes control of Vanessa. We see Vanessa's eyes basically change to like the puppet like silver eyes. She's got like the tear streaks on her face, and that's when the movie ends. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You people seriously leave us on a cliffhanger like that? For real? And it's like, yes we did, Johnny. We absolutely did just that. So that's basically all I have to say about the opening and closing scenes. Now let's go ahead and talk about my top 5 favorite scenes from the movie. When I get done talking about them, I'll leave a list of how I would rank them, either right here somewhere or right here somewhere, whichever editor me feels like putting them. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So the first scene I'm going to talk about, which is probably my favorite scene from the movie, is the scene where Abby first meets Toy Chica. Basically, I thought this scene was really wholesome. At first glance, it does look like a wholesome scene. Basically, it looks like Abby is reuniting with one of her friends. And they both give each other a warm hug. Everything just looks so wholesome. But as the movie goes on, you realize it's all fake. Because Charlotte, aka the marionette, is actually controlling the toys and is basically masquerading as Abby's friends. So Blumhouse was definitely genius for doing that right there. It's just like making the scene, like first glance, being so wholesome, but then later on it's like you realize, wait a second, it's all fake. This is all just clever deception. Yeah. Basically that's what makes it my favorite scene in the movie. So, let's move on to the next scene. The next scene I'm going to talk about is the scene where we see Corey X. Kenshin as the taxi driver. Which, Blumhouse, that was so cool of you to invite Corey back here for the second movie. It was really cool that we got to see him make that appearance as the taxi driver in the first movie, and to see him come back for the next movie, and just see him basically improve on his character was really cool too. He gets scared by Toy Chica. He basically is just contemplating, like, why am I even doing this job? I really gotta do something else so I don't have to deal with any more freaks. It was such a hilarious scene, too. It was really funny. So, Corey X. Kenshin, if you're watching this, you did a great job in both movies as that taxi driver. Your character was definitely spot on. But now then, let's go ahead and move on to the next scene. The third of my top 5 favorite scenes has to be the scene where Mike destroys Balloon Boy. This was an oddly satisfying scene, despite it being a little bit on the gruesome side. And I actually let out a bit of an audible chuckle in the theater whenever I watched the movie myself for the first time. I actually just went like, ha ha, and then immediately, oh, probably should not be doing that there. It's just such an oddly satisfying scene. Just Mike goes up to Balloon Boy. He's basically like, I've had enough of this Joker, and just like chucks his helmet away. Or no, not helmet, his head. And it's just like so many people who played Fnaf 2 know Balloon Boy is such an annoying character. How he just like either goes into the vents talking like this little annoying little boy voice and just basically like laughs whenever he pops out of the vent and is just standing in the office. It's like you just wish you could do something to get rid of him, but you can't. So Blumhouse, definitely kudos to you on that. That was really cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the fourth scene. Scene number 4, which I'm going to talk about, is the final fight scene between the OGs and the toys. Now, I cannot tell you guys how many animation videos I've seen of just different FNAF animatronics fighting another group. And just seeing this in a movie was definitely like, wow, that is amazing. That is peak. Which, I'll cover more on this scene later in the video, but I thought that was a good scene. It was really cool to see. Blumhouse was definitely genius for doing that. So let's go ahead and move on to the final scene. So the fifth and final of my top 5 favorite scenes has to be where Toy Freddy appears at FazFest. I thought that was really cool how he's just walking through the festival all tall and proud, like, hey, look at me everybody, I'm out of the pizzeria, I'm here amongst you all. And it was really cool that we got to see appearances by Kellen Goff, who actually voices Toy Freddy in the movie, along with other FNAF characters in the games, and even voices Foxy in FNAF 1. But also we got to see an appearance from 4 British YouTubers who are big FNAF fans, that being 8-Bit Ryan, who is one of my favorite YouTubers at the moment. We see Razbowski, Dawko, and Bazamilam, or Baz for short. So, gotta quickly mention to y'all something about that. Now, when I first watched the movie, I didn't actually notice that was 8-Bit Ryan and Razbowski just looking up at Toy Freddy. Basically, yeah, they did get a little cameo appearance, and I actually felt kind of bad that I didn't notice that at first. But then, it was like a day or two after I watched the movie, I saw like a little short video basically talking about Easter eggs that happened in the movie and actually pointed them out in that scene. And I was like, wow, how did I not see that? But as time has gone on, I'm like, actually, yeah, it's understandable how I missed that. Because they're only just on there for a split second, and if you're not like looking in that exact spot where they appear on camera, or basically on scene, actually, it's actually very understandable as to why people would miss that. Now, another thing is, I still haven't found the exact moment in that scene where you see Dawko and Baz. So, if anybody knows exactly where they appear in that scene, please do let me know in the comments down below, because I'm just dying to know about that myself. But anyway, that's my top 5 favorite scenes explained. Now let's move on to some scenes that I was not expecting to see. Now, the first scene which I was not expecting to see was the part in Vanessa's dream sequence where she sees Circus Baby. I mean, that absolutely shocked me to just see Circus Baby standing in that closet, just peering down at Vanessa. So, despite the fact that I find Circus Baby one of the scariest animatronics in the FNAF world myself, she's also one of my favorites just because of her whole, like, backstory, just how she was made, and all that. So that was really cool that she got a little appearance there in the movie myself. So now let's move on to the second scene, which I was not expecting. The second scene I was not expecting is basically right before the fight scene where basically Michael Afton reveals who he is. Just seeing Michael Afton as basically a villain in the movie was definitely a major plot twist. Like after the toys get deactivated, Michael somehow like hacks into them and is now controlling them himself. I was definitely not expecting to see that. I forget the guy's name who plays Michael Afton. I'll just flash it here somewhere on screen so y'all can see for yourselves. But anyway, he did a good job just basically implying Michael Afton as a villain. And I'll cover more on that a little bit later in this video as well. But now then, let's move on to the third scene, which I was not expecting. The third and final scene, which I was not expecting to see, was actually one I didn't see in the movie myself. I actually saw this after I got home from watching the FNAF 2 movie, and that was actually during the end credits scene where we heard Henry's phone call. basically talking about the marionette, him being associated with William Afton, and just warning Mike that the marionette was going to come back. I gotta admit, Skeet Ulrich, who plays Henry in the movie, did a really good job with Henry's character, and even did a great job with this final post-credit audio scene right here, where he actually sounds a lot like Henry in the Fnaf 6 game, Pizzeria Simulator. I thought that scene was really good too. So now basically that's just my little synopsis of the 3 scenes I was not expecting to see. So now let's move on to some scenes that I found scary. The first scene, which I thought was one of the scariest scenes, would have to be where Lisa gets possessed by the marionette. Basically just seeing her kind of floating, or levitating a little bit, and then just collapsing, but then the slow head rise up like that. That was really creepy. Just seeing her like eyes and just how she's like tilted there, it reminds me of this one scene with Jackie from Secret of the Mimic. Now, although I have not played Secret of the Mimic yet, I do know I did see this one screenshot where like Jackie has like these glowing yellow eyes, and it's kind of got like its head tilted down a little bit and is just looking at the player. That just reminded me of that right there. Anyway, let's move on now to my next scene, which I found scary. The second scene, which I thought was one of the scariest, would have to be Mr. Berg's death. Basically, Wayne Knight did a good job like portraying Mr. Berg's character, basically just an arrogant teacher who thought he was doing something good and basically just discouraging Abby from not being in the science fair. Even though as hated as his character would probably be by a lot of people, it still was just an awful way for him to go. I mean, just getting picked up by your head, just basically Toy Chica just going with that. That was really gruesome. And it's honestly kind of glad that they actually didn't show him that exact moment right there on camera, because that probably would have made people sick just seeing that. That probably would have gotten the movie like a much more like strict rating for like audience viewers. Anyway, that's my second scene, which I found scary. Now let's move on to my third one. The third scene which I found scary would have to be where Mangle attacks Vanessa's car. This scene was definitely terrifying in how well portrayed like Mangle is as just an aggressive, predatory animatronic. It's definitely similar to how Mangle sort of behaves in the game. Basically just moving around, you don't know where it's going to appear. And as well just hearing like these like staticky, distorted growling sounds, which I thought the movie did a good job with in just bringing Mangle to life. And as well, just imagine that for a second. You're out just driving on the road, and then suddenly you hear a big thump on the top of your car, and you see like Mangle's head peering down over you. Yeah, that would definitely terrify just about anybody, I'd say. But now let's move on to the fourth scene, which I thought was one of the scariest. The fourth scene which I found scary would probably be where Abby gets possessed by the marionette. This was personally the scariest scene which I found. I mean, just seeing Abby in basically like the Abby-Annette stage, as some of the actors called it, was definitely terrifying to me. Which Piper Rubio, the girl who plays Abby, definitely did a good job in just being scary. Now, I don't know if anybody's seen this, but in this little like interview with Josh Hutcherson, the guy who plays Mike, he stated about this scene where the Piper Rubio just wanted to basically scare everybody as much as she could, and he was definitely right. That scene sure scared me. I definitely would not want to see something like that happen to a little kid myself. Anyway, that's the fourth scene. Now let's move on to the final scene, which I thought was really scary. The final scene, which I thought was one of the scariest, would have to be Toy Bonnie's attack. Basically where he grabs the knife and tries to kill Debbie's mom, and as well even attempts to take out Debbie himself. I mean, just seeing him with his glowing red eyes and just holding that knife so, like, aggressively and menacingly. That definitely was terrifying in of itself. As well, I thought MatPat did a good job, like, with Toy Bonnie's voice, just giving him, like, that tiny little bit of, like, kind of cutesiness to him, but as well being a slight angsty, and somehow making it sound scary all at the same time. I thought that was really cool. I'll cover more on that later in this video as well. But those are the scenes which I thought were the scariest. Now let's move on to some scenes which I thought could have been improved on. The first scene which I thought could have been improved on would have to be the opening scene. Because, like I mentioned before, there's this one part in the opening scene where Charlotte is carrying the little boy out of, like, the back area and trying to bring him back to, like, the dining area of the pizzeria where all the guests are. But yet, for some reason, she appears on stage instead. And I think if Blumhouse had coordinated a little bit better just how Charlotte got out onto the main stage from, like, the back area, I think we could have seen that a little bit better. Because you can clearly see in the scene she's heading for the door that's going towards the dining area, but yet somehow she ends up on the main stage in, like, the puppets area. So, at the same time, though, I'm sure somebody could explain how that was done. Maybe, like, William somehow, like, after he attacked her, just put her in that exact spot or something like that. But still, if there was some kind of a better, like, sequence to explain how she did that, instead just, like, that little transition from her heading towards that door and instead heading out onto the stage, I think this scene could have been done better. Now let's move on to the next one. The second scene, which I thought could have been improved on, was the scene where Abby releases the toy animatronics from the pizzeria. After she enters in, like, the passcode to release the perimeter lock, we see Toy Freddy and Toy Bonnie active for the first time in the movie. And right here, I believe, is where they should have gotten their first voice lines. I'd say probably Toy Freddy should have gotten his first voice line there by the point where he's, like, walking into the office. If he said something like, "Well done, Abby. You've done a great help to us. Now it's our turn to help you." I think that scene would have definitely been better. But still, nonetheless, the scene was good, but that's just my little critique on how that could have been done better. So now, let's move on to the third scene. The third scene, which I thought could have been done better, was the scene where Toy Freddy commences his attack. So after he, like, appears in the house and starts attacking the middle-aged couple, one of them, like, takes this sandwich and just throws it at him, and the slice of cheese just, like, lands on his nose. I thought that scene was funny myself, but the way I thought this scene could have been done better is if Toy Freddy, instead of just, like, looking down at the cheese slice on his nose and then just looking back at them, if he had said something like, "That's not very effective," or if he just, like, slowly reached for the slice of cheese and just, like, threw it to the side, that probably would have made the scene look a lot better. And probably even just a little bit more on the scary side itself. But still, at the same time, though, Toy Freddy with his little cheese nose was definitely funny nonetheless. But anyway, let's now move on to the fourth scene. The fourth scene, which I thought could have been done better, was actually the final fight scene. Now, as understandable as it was why the toy animatronics didn't fight back, because it was basically like the surprise or startle effect kicks in right here. At the same time, though, I think at least after like the second or the third one came into the house, surely at least Toy Chica should have been able to get into some kind of like a tussle with OG Chica at that point. Because when she walks into the room with Abby, Mike, and Vanessa, she should have been able to realize that, hey, your toy companions have all been destroyed, that you're about to be next. But at the same time, though, this was still one of my favorite scenes, just seeing a fight animation, so I can understand why Blumhouse made the scene the way they did. But now then, let's move on to the final scene, which I thought could have been improved. The last scene which I thought could have been improved on would have to be the scene with the withered animatronics. Now, a lot of people were saying like the withered animatronics weren't getting enough screen time, and part of me is inclined to agree with that. Like, all we see is them just coming to life, and we see them just one by one try to attack Mike. Which, if they had one of them had like a voice line or something, I thought it could have been better done with them. At the same time, it was cool that they did get some screen time in it themselves. But my little critique here would be if one of them had a voice line, or if we saw basically just a little better way of how they attack, similar to how they attack the guard in the Fnaf 2 game itself. This scene probably could have been done better. But it was still good nonetheless. So that's basically my basically little synopsis of what I thought of some scenes that could have been improved on. Now let's move on to a few Easter eggs which I caught. Actually, I told you all wrong. These all weren't Easter eggs I saw when I first watched the movie. These are actually my favorite Easter eggs. So, the first one, which I actually did not catch when I first watched the FNAF 2 movie, was the puppet's voice line. At one point when Vanessa is back in the FNAF 2 establishment and Lisa is still possessed by the marionette, we hear Charlotte's voice saying, "I don't hate you, but you need to stay out of my way." Which is actually one of the puppet's voice lines from Ultimate Custom Night, one of the FNAF games. And I actually felt kind of bad not realizing that. But at the same time, it had been a while since I last saw anything about Ultimate Custom Night, so it's not like I could just remember every single character's voice line right off the top of my head. But still, it was really cool that Blumhouse was able to include that in the movie. So now let's move on to the second one. The second Easter egg, which was one of my favorites, would have to be the scene where Mike is in the FNAF 1 pizzeria with Abby, and he finds the Freddy plush, gives it a little squeeze, and it starts playing the Freddy rap meme song. Which is actually not Freddy himself, it's actually somebody doing like a meme impression of Glam Rock Freddy from Security Breach. And that was honestly one of my favorite Security Breach memes myself, is just seeing like Freddy just like singing this silly little rap song. Gregory's just like sitting there annoyed like, "Freddy, can you please stop doing that? You're driving me nuts." Anyway, that was really cool that Blumhouse included that. There's one more Easter egg which I did catch and some other people didn't, which I will now discuss. The final Easter egg is the quick inclusion of Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy. Now, when I first saw the movie myself, I actually did see Shadow Bonnie standing on the wall. But a lot of people were saying that they did not see it themselves. Which is understandable. It's like only there for just like a split second, and if you're not looking in that exact spot when he appears, you definitely would miss it. And I think as well there's another part where Shadow Freddy appears on like the outside wall of the office, which I actually didn't notice myself, but somebody did manage to point it out there. If I do find it, I'll leave a quick screenshot here for you all to see that. But that was really cool that Blumhouse was able to include both of them in this movie, since it's not very often you get to see them in the FNAF 2 game. So that was definitely a cool Easter egg right there. Now, that's my little conclusion of my 3 favorite Easter eggs in the movie. Now I need to address some hate comments about some certain characters. Now, after just seeing what some other people thought of the movie, there's 2 big criticisms here. The first one being is that Toy Chica seemed to get a lot more screen time than the other animatronics, and the second one being just like the choice of voice actors for the toy animatronics. Now, in regards to Toy Chica, I kind of agree why some people would be upset about her just getting so much screen time than Toy Freddy and Toy Bonnie and Mangle. But in listening to an interview with Piper Rubio, once again the girl who played Abby, it's understandable why Toy Chica got so much screen time as she did. So, in this interview, Piper is saying that she developed a close relationship with Chica's suit actor. I don't remember their name right off the top of my head, but I'll leave it up here so y'all can see it yourselves. Apparently the two of them received a close bond, like during filming, just off camera, and it seemed natural to Blumhouse that Chica would be Abby's favorite animatronic. So while as a little irritating as it is that Toy Chica seems to get so much screen time, it's not all just because like she's the fan favorite of the toy animatronics, she's just Abby's favorite. So that definitely was understandable to me myself. Now, in regard to the voice actors for the toy animatronics, I actually didn't see anything wrong with them myself. Mainly it's just like with Toy Freddy, like his voice not being game accurate, because in the games he's all like goofy, like, that game was totally rigged. But then in the movies he's got like a more like Darth Vader kind of voice. He's like, I have to go pull the heads off some very bad people. Which, I actually didn't see anything wrong with that myself. If you want to, like, make a quick tweak to his voice to make him seem like someone scary, like he's not just some big, cuddly bear, I actually didn't see anything wrong with that myself. I thought Kellen Goff did a good job voicing Toy Freddy and just making him sound scary. In regards to Matt Pat and Megan Fox, who voiced Toy Chica, I thought their voice is... the way they voiced Toy Bonnie and Toy Chica were well done too. I mean, yeah, they're game accurate. I mean, Megan Fox did a good job making Toy Chica kind of sound a little on the cutesy side. Basically just like a little bit of a bubbly type, but at the same time as well making her sound scary in certain scenes. And with Matt Pat, like I mentioned earlier in the video, he was able to give Toy Bonnie like his little bit of angst, and as well making him sound scary, which I thought was good too. So that's basically just all I have to say about those critic comments. Now let's move on to another little surprise. Another thing which I don't know if anybody noticed about the FNAF 2 movie is during the end credits when we see like who's responsible for building the character suits themselves. One of the members of the puppet build crew was actually Atreyu Alcantar, who goes by Deregular Sauce. That was really cool that he was a part of the people who helped create the puppet. So, Deregular Sauce, if you are watching this video right now, thank you so much for contributing to making this movie awesome. I'm a big fan of yours, and it would be an honor if I got to meet you one day. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to another scene. Now, one more thing I do want to talk about before I close is the like little epilogue scene. We see this scene where these 3 guys break into the FNAF 1 establishment. They're saying it's about to get torn down, and they actually find Springtrap. And just me watching that, I was like, no way, there's actually going to be a 3rd movie? That's going to be so awesome. and basically it has been confirmed that there will be a third movie, and it's said to come out sometime in like late 2027. So yeah, it's a Blumhouse. I'm definitely looking forward to the third movie. I hope you all do a great job on it, and I can't wait to see it when it comes out. So now, that's basically all I have to say for just the whole entirety of the movie. Now I'm just going to close with some final thoughts here. So that's basically all I have to say about the movie. Is overall, the movie I thought was really good. It did have its scary moments here and there. And I just hope the third movie is good whenever it comes out. So to everybody who helped make this movie possible, basically to Emma Tammy, Jason Blum, and just all the people who helped make all the props and characters, y'all did such a great job with this movie. I really enjoyed it, and I just hope y'all do a great job in making the third movie. As well to all the actors, to, once again, Josh Hutcherson, Piper Rubio, Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich, Elizabeth Lail, and just everybody else who had some kind of scene in this movie. Y'all did such a great job. I thought your acting was well done, and hopefully I get to see just about all of you in the third movie. I bet it's going to be great. Now, I do have some theories about this movie, but I'm not going to say any of those theories for this video. I'm going to save them for like some short videos, which I will be posting later on the channel, probably sometime next month. But hey, that's basically going to be it for this video. So to everyone who's made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you all enjoyed it, you guys already know what to do. Please leave a like on this video by hitting that like button. Please comment down below what you thought of the Fnaf movie yourself, or if you have any suggestions for new content you want to see on the channel. Please as well share this with all your family and friends to help more people find this channel. And please do subscribe to help this channel grow. Because my big goal this year is to hit 100 subscribers. I'm so close to hitting that goal, and only you, the people who are not currently subscribed, can make that happen. But once again, I want to say thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to Blumhouse for making a sequel to the first Fnaf movie. And best of luck to you all. Best of wishes to making the third movie. I hope everybody watching this has a blessed day, and I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye! Thank you.